Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're really excited about what we've got lined up for you today. If you're here, you're probably the kind of person who wants to get right to the heart of complex topics, no fluff, just the good stuff, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. Today, we are going to dive deep into the intersection of artificial intelligence, or AI, and dynamic modeling.
And more specifically, we're going to be looking at the role of AI in a particular approach to dynamic modeling known as system dynamics.
We've got two really interesting sources for you today.
First up, we'll be looking at a call for papers that was put out recently, really focusing on how AI is being integrated into dynamic modeling.
And then we're going to switch gears a little bit and look at a personal perspective on this whole area, an article called Why I Go and Why You Should Too, which is an invitation to the International System Dynamics Conference that's coming up in 2025.
And the idea here is to give you a sense of why this intersection of AI and dynamic modeling is creating so much buzz right now, and whether or not this conference might be something that you want to check out.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in with this call for papers. The main takeaway, right from the start, is that AI is increasingly being woven into the fabric of dynamic modeling, which is pretty exciting stuff. Now, this particular call had a deadline of March 18th, 2025. So we are, of course, past that date.
Right.
But it's still really valuable to see what they were asking for in terms of research, because that gives us a window into what's happening at the forefront of this field.
Absolutely. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, dynamic modeling is basically creating these representations of systems that change over time, right? Think about modeling how a city's population grows, how a disease might spread, that kind of thing.
Okay.
System dynamics specifically is a way of approaching dynamic modeling where you focus on how different parts of a system influence each other through these things called feedback loops. Now, this call for papers, they were looking for research on how AI can improve and enhance basically every stage of this modeling process. From defining the problem you're trying to solve, articulating that problem, to actually building the model, to rigorously testing it to make sure it's behaving the way it should be, and even using that model to evaluate different policies or actions you might take.
And one of the things that really stood out to me was how they highlighted AI's potential to automate some of these tasks that can be incredibly time-consuming and labor-intensive. Imagine having AI tools that can just take huge amounts of data and visualize them in ways that make it so much easier to see those hidden patterns or AI that can help us interpret those really complex outputs that models can produce and point to those key takeaways. That seems like a huge leap forward in terms of efficiency and accessibility.
It is. It's a really big deal. And it's not just about speed, right? This call for papers also touched on how AI could really change the game when it comes to collaborative modeling, how different teams with different expertise could work together on a problem. AI could actually act as a common language, almost an intelligent assistant, helping everyone understand what the model is showing them and contribute more effectively. They even talked about AI potentially tutoring new modelers, helping them get up to speed and learn those core principles of system dynamics.
And it's not just the technical side of building models, right? I mean, they were very clear about wanting to address the ethical and social implications of bringing AI into this field. Questions about how this increased automation might affect jobs in different areas, the bigger picture of how AI-driven models are being used to make important decisions, and what that means for society. Those are really important conversations to be having as this technology keeps evolving.
Absolutely. And the call for papers did a great job of laying out both the potential benefits and the challenges that come with integrating AI and dynamic modeling. On the one hand, we have this possibility of uncovering these much deeper insights into how systems behave, being able to pinpoint those leverage points where a small intervention can create a big impact. But they also acknowledge that merging these two distinct approaches, AI and dynamic modeling, isn't always going to be easy.
Right.
For instance, making sure that the algorithms that are driving these AI systems are transparent, that we understand why they're suggesting certain model structures or policy recommendations is going to be really important.
And I was really struck by how many different fields this call for papers saw as relevant. I mean, they mentioned public policy, business, health, the environment. It's such a broad spectrum of applications. And it wasn't just about AI-powered dynamic modeling. They were also open to hearing about new and innovative ways of using more traditional dynamic modeling techniques. So things like system dynamics, but also agent-based modeling, where you're really zooming in on the behavior of individuals within a system, and discrete event simulation, which models systems as this sequence of events.
Hmm.
And these techniques were welcomed across this really diverse range of areas like economics, education, security, and even transportation. Really broad.
Yeah, and I think what makes this call for papers so insightful is that it gives you a snapshot of what people are really excited about right now at the cutting edge of the field. What are researchers focusing on? What are the big opportunities that they see? And what are some of the key questions that we still need to grapple with as we start to blend AI with these powerful dynamic modeling approaches?
That's a great point.
Right.
Okay, so we've gotten a good sense of the research side of things.
Hmm.
Now let's shift gears and look at this second piece, why I go and why you should too. This one is a lot more personal, focusing on the International System Dynamics Conference, also known as the ISDC, and it really does a fantastic job of framing this whole event.
It does. The author's central argument here is that the ISDC is really more than just a conference. It's a gathering of people who are trying to understand and ultimately change these complex global issues that we're all facing.
I was particularly drawn to the analogy that the author used, comparing the conference attendees to, get this, the Avengers of complexity,
Oh, wow.
with system dynamicists as the superheroes.
Right.
And then they broke down some of the core tools of system dynamics using these Marvel characters. And I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, how'd they do that?
Okay, so they describe feedback loops as like Captain America's strong fundamental values that keep things grounded.
Oh, that's a good one.
Simulations are like Iron Man's sophisticated technology that allow us to test out different scenarios, right? And then scenario planning is kind of like Doctor Strange, peering into all these different possible future timelines to see what might happen. And finally, they talk about all the different ways that fields are connected and influence each other as kind of Spider-Man's web, linking everything together.
Right.
You know, if someone's not familiar with all the technical jargon, that really brings it to life.
It's a brilliant way to make these complex ideas accessible. So just to unpack that a little bit, the author is suggesting that system dynamics gives us this framework for understanding how different elements within a system interact and influence each other over time. And often that's through these feedback loops. So those can be reinforcing feedback loops or balancing feedback loops. And then computer simulations allow us to actually experiment with different assumptions and policies within this virtual environment, which helps us understand the potential long-term consequences of actions that we take. And then scenario planning is absolutely crucial because it allows us to explore a whole range of possible futures so that we can come up with strategies that are robust and adaptable no matter what happens.
Yeah. And it's not just about being a passive observer at this conference, is it? The author really emphasized that they go to the ISDC to actively participate and contribute. They're presenting new research, leading workshops, even showing off new tools and prototypes.
Yeah.
You get this real sense that everyone who's there is eager to share their work and learn from others.
It does seem like a really unique environment. The author clearly feels a deep connection to this community, a real sense of gratitude for being part of this conversation and being able to connect with others who are wrestling with these same complex issues. You can really feel that it's a very collaborative and supportive atmosphere.
Now, the article speaks directly to the listener, posing the question of why you should think about attending this conference, and connected to that feeling of, being frustrated or even vexed, as they put it, by these huge global problems that we see, and feeling like we need to do more than just address the symptoms. They suggest that the people who go to the ISDC are those who are willing to dig in, get their hands dirty, and really try to understand the messy, interconnected nature of these challenges.
Absolutely. These are people who are not afraid of complexity. They embrace it. They're actively seeking to understand what drives change within systems. What are those tipping points where a small shift can create these cascading effects? Where are the leverage points where you can create the biggest impact with a small intervention? And what are those feedback loops that are often hidden that are shaping how these systems behave over time? And their ultimate goal is to create these practical and effective tools that can help us create positive change in the world.
And I think it was a nice touch that the article mentioned that the 43rd International System Dynamics Conference is coming up in Boston from August 3rd to 7th, 2025. And they even call Boston a city of revolutions, which I thought was a really neat connection, linking the history of systemic change with the kind of work that they're talking about at this conference.
Yeah, it brings it all together.
And the author ends on this really powerful note, saying that helping others just because it's the right thing to do is its own form of heroism, regardless of your official title or qualifications. And I think that really speaks to the values and the motivations of this whole community.
Yeah, it does. It's very inspiring.
Okay, so let's step back for a second. If we pull all of this together, what are the big takeaways for you, for our listeners, from both this call for papers and this personal invitation to the conference?
Well, first and foremost, I think the big takeaway is that AI is quickly becoming a major force in the world of dynamic modeling. It has the potential to create some really significant breakthroughs in how we analyze and understand these complex systems that we're surrounded by. And this applies to such a wide range of applications. And we're seeing AI being used to improve everything from how we initially define a problem to how we evaluate the effectiveness of potential solutions.
Right. And then we have this International System Dynamics Conference, which is clearly a central hub for anyone who's involved in or even just really interested in this work of trying to understand and shape these complex systems. It's not just an academic gathering. It really feels like this engaged community of people who are committed to making a difference.
That's exactly right. And the conference provides this really valuable space for researchers, practitioners, people who are just getting started in this field to share their work, learn about new methodologies, including these exciting new ways of integrating AI, and to connect with a global network of people who are all thinking in terms of systems. And as the author pointed out, active participation and contribution are highly valued, which makes it a very dynamic and collaborative environment.
So there you have it. You've now taken a deep dive with us into this fascinating intersection of AI and dynamic modeling, and hopefully you have a much better understanding of what's happening on the research front and why this International System Dynamics Conference is such an important gathering for this community.
And this brings us to a really important question that we'd like you to consider. Given this incredible potential of AI to help us understand these complex systems, and given the energy and the focus on collaboration and action at the ISDC, what specific global challenge do you think would benefit the most from bringing together these cutting-edge ideas and this dedicated group of people?
Food for thought. We encourage you to explore more on your own if this has sparked your interest. Maybe look up the System Dynamics Society. Find out more about this upcoming conference in Boston. You are now much better equipped to understand the complexities that surround us and maybe even think about how you might contribute to creating positive change.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.